Hello, my name's Frank Mitchell. I'm the Generation Director for Energy Wholesale and Scottish Power in the UK. Ryehouse Power Station lies 18 miles north of London. It is owned and operated by Scottish Power, one of the Iberdrola group of international companies. The station uses combined cycle gas turbine technology to generate 715 megawatts of electrical power. On the 23rd of January 2009, a serious incident took place. As a result of this incident, 3 people were badly burned, with 1 casualty suffering life-threatening injuries. The purpose of this film is to convey to staff and contractors the seriousness of this incident, for us to explain what happened and ensure we learn from the events so that a similar incident never happens again.
Ryehouse was generating normally, whilst also preparing for a shutdown to progress maintenance on the gas supply pipeline. Taking full opportunity from the outage, the production team prepared safety documentation for additional maintenance in other areas, including the heat recovery boiler and common feed system. One package of work included repairs to a non-return valve on the discharge side of number 1 high-pressure recirculating pump. The valve had a leaking spindle, and in order to progress the repair, a 2-man team would be working from a scaffold at a height of approximately 3 meters. At 9:42 p.m. on the evening of the 22nd of January, the station shut down and preparations began for the following day's maintenance activities. The night shift duty team leader was also performing the role of control person. In addition to his normal team, he supervised 7 production staff, helping to prepare permits for work. At 11 p.m, the team assigned to the boiler condensate pipework began the process of isolating and draining the pipework to make the system safe for the following day's maintenance crews. In doing so, they referred to the relevant shift instructions, which included a detailed drainage schedule. By 2:30 a.m, it was becoming clear that the boiler pressure would not have decayed sufficiently for the permit for work to be completed by the end of the night shift. As a consequence, the boiler would be handed over in a partially isolated and drained state, and responsibility for completing the permit for work would pass to the day shift. At 6 a.m, the boiler pressure was 3 bar. The day shift team leader arrived on site for shift handover and took over from his colleague. During the handover, the night shift team leader produced a copy of the drainage schedule and explained that the boiler was only partially drained. The day shift team leader, who was also the control person, read the schedule and correctly identified that the 2 valves that were not highlighted in blue still required to be opened. These are the telltale valves that provide visual confirmation that the boiler is draining and that it has fully drained when water stops flowing into the trench. The shift instruction indicated these could be opened when the boiler pressure had fallen to 2 bar. However, there were some additional handwritten notes adjacent to some of the valve descriptions. These notes were highlighted in pink and stated that this group of drainage valves also remained closed and required to be opened. These notes were not noticed by the day shift team leader. Because these drains were still closed, hot condensate remained in the discharge line. By 7:10 a.m, the boiler pressure had fallen below 2 bar, low enough for the telltale valves to be opened. The day shift team leader instructed one of his team members to open these valves. At 2 bar, there should have been hot condensate blowing from the telltales, but although there was a small amount of steam issuing from the trench associated with other drainage, no additional condensate emerged, indicating that valves upstream of the telltales remained closed. The operator opening the telltales was inexperienced and did not know that this indicated a problem. Sometime later, the day shift team leader inspected the telltale valves himself, and seeing no steam or water, assumed that they had fully drained the discharge line. At 9:40 a.m., the day shift team leader completed, signed and issued the permit for work, and issued it to a maintenance team member, acting as nominated supervisor and nominated competent person for the valve repairs. After completing a number of dynamic risk assessments, he gave permission for contractors to start working on the non-return valve. At approximately 3:40 p.m., 2 contractors were in the process of breaking the pressure seal on the non-return valve. Suddenly, hot condensate escaped from the seal and engulfed both men.
In the immediate aftermath, one man was able to escape and climb down the scaffold. He was taken to an emergency shower for first aid treatment. Another contractor from the same company witnessed the incident and went to the rescue of his trapped colleague. As a result, he also sustained burn injuries but refused to leave his colleague because he was too seriously injured to make his own way down from the scaffold. As first aiders rushed to attend the men, the emergency services were called. The most serious injured man had to be rescued from the scaffold using a mobile elevated working platform. A paramedic was on site within 20 minutes, followed by the first ambulance a few minutes later. An air ambulance also arrived at the site, and after initial treatment, the men were rushed to hospital. The man trapped on the scaffold was the most seriously injured, receiving 60% burns. For some days, he remained in a critical condition in a high dependency ward, but thankfully he pulled through, having spent a total of 6 weeks in hospital. His colleague, who had been working with him on the scaffold, received 26% burns and was hospitalised for 2 weeks. The third man, who went to the rescue of his colleague, was allowed home after treatment that night. Within hours of the incident, a panel of inquiry was established. It quickly identified the cause of the incident, which was a failure to drain the discharge side of the high-pressure recirculating pump where the non-return valve was situated. The inquiry also found that communications from the night shift to the day shift had been poor and the status of the discharge line drains was misunderstood. The day shift team leader assumed these drains had been opened during the night shift in accordance with the boiler drainage procedure when the pressure fell below 30 bar. His assumption appeared to be born out of the fact that the valves in the drainage schedule were all highlighted in blue, with the exception of the telltale valves, which he knew still required to be opened. However, 2 other drain valves on the schedule also required to be opened, a fact recorded in handwritten notes on the side of the schedule. This information was also conveyed verbally during the shift handover and correctly typed up by a member of the production team. Had these valves been opened, then the condensate would have drained and emptied the discharge pipework above the non-return valve. Under Scottish Power safety rules, the control person has responsibility for agreeing the isolation required with the senior authorised person. Unless another authorised person completes and signs for this isolation, it is the senior authorised person's responsibility to verify that all necessary precautions have been taken prior to issuing a permit to work. On this occasion, the duty team leader, who was also the senior authorised person, did not verify that all necessary precautions were in place before issuing the permit for work. The panel of inquiry made a number of recommendations. A presentation was prepared for control persons and senior authorised persons to highlight the circumstances of the incident and to reinforce the responsibilities attached to roles within the safety rules. A project was launched to improve the quality of shift handover and the communication of plant status, including any isolations that may be handed over incomplete between shifts. This film was prepared to aid communications with employees, contractors and industry colleagues. From now on, It will also be used in safety rules, training and refresher training in Scottish Power. The main lessons to be learned from this incident is that the safety rules must be applied rigorously and consistently. Our business by its nature is very complex and highly dynamic. There is no room for ambiguity or uncertainty. We rely on senior authorised persons at all times to ensure that we are putting people to work safely. If, as a senior authorised person, you are in any doubt, I would encourage you to stop and ask for help from your manager or another senior authorised person so that no one will be injured. Absolutely nobody will be criticised for this. People's lives depend upon the safety assurances that these rules are designed to provide. Health and safety is our number one priority. Health and safety matters.